sacrifice. Leaving you would do me no good. I must have every last drop to rule the underworld as king.
King? You? I don't know. I mean, you're a big guy and all, but you seem more like a knuckle-scrapping fart in the wind than anything else.
Yep, he's back and looking mighty fine. Nero is the star here, but the final game will give us Dante, Virgil and more. For now though, we get an early taste of this new chapter in the Devil May Cry universe, and first impressions are excellent. This has the same tongue-in-cheek humour, gothic style, fast-paced combat and long skill tree to rank up combined attacks to juggle and keep your badass rating up throughout. This demo looks to be the same, or at least very similar to the Gamescom one earlier this year, and may actually be the exact same build from them also. So the first thing to mention here is all of this analysis is coming from a pre-released code, and as such it could change significantly in the next few months for its March release. But diving into the top and tail of the console versions, we can see that visually this is keeping up the same quality of the series. Remember, this is an exclusive demo to Xbox players at the moment, so I don't know whether or not they're going to be a PC and a PS4 demo later in the year. We'll have to wait and see, or at least next year. Starting life as a Resident Evil update, it span out into the PS2 trilogy that looked and ran incredible on Sony's second and all-conquering hardware. Like those forebearers, the game pushes you through sections of spawning enemies, puzzle solving, exploration and monstrous boss battles, preceded with a cocksure attitude and some words that you may regret saying in the morning. In fact, the game really does not stray far from that formula at all, aside the devil trigger mechanism that replaces your right forearm. These can be mixed up and picked up during battle. Be quick, as enemies know the power and will destroy them if you leave them too long. The two versions both target the same 60 FPS rate, which I'll get to later, but visually we can see an obvious advantage to the X. Resolution appears to target the same maximum on both machines, that being 1920 by 1080p on the base and 3840 by 2160 on the X. Side by side you can see the improvement this offers. Detail is much sharper and isotropic filtering is cleaner. Materials highlight far more surface properties and blemishes, and the depth of field is much stronger on the S due to it being a lower resolution, which results in softer edges and larger bokeh shapes. Still a look on both, especially in the cinematics, which ramp up the quality from the in-game models and shading. The motion capture and animation rigging they have here looks to be refined again and better than what we saw in 7, offering sharper but more hyper-realistic skin styles. Skin quality and hair is worthy of praise indeed, even more so for the 60 FPS rate it targets. You could notice dithering on the fins of hair much more on the S, and the X having a very stable look and clean throughout, even on close-ups. The gap is all down to the sharpness of high frequency information and stability of image, even though both use a temporal AA element which does soften it a little. I'm not sure if it uses the horizontal interlace mode I picked out in the Res 7 game and later found in the PC options when I got hold of that version. But if the counts are coming out as they expect, bar two minor ones which I'm going to ignore for now, they never show anything less than the native image. So either it is turned off, which may be a quick win for performance boosts, or they have significantly improved it so the edge cases are reduced and the implementation is much better. Either or, the results speak for themselves and look as striking as Nero in battle.
Do you do parties?
In the demo, we get a small taste of these powers with a laser lasso to pull in enemies or pull yourself to them, a huge power blast accompanied with a huge particle spark spray. Always a fan of particle systems, and the RE engine does them very well. Being the exact same engine that delivered the goods last year with Res 7, it has become the new future toolset for Capcom as predicted, replacing the Panther Ray engine that went deep down with that game. We can see here though that some of those features and techniques remain. Likely a deferred engine, we have the same excellent and abundant light sources with shadow casters, physically based material shading, which may also come from the photogrammetry methods used in Res 7. In addition to this is the particle system and physics-based destruction, which is the standout feature so far here for me on this demo. If you recall the early demo or prototype of Deep Down, we had a dragon destroying pillars as the battle raged on, sending crumbling debris everywhere. Look familiar? Now, alongside the bokeh sample depth of field, which accentuates that particle show and again shows glimpses of that early gen prototype. Even if the engine has been laid to rest, I'm happy to report its legacy clearly lives on. The other high point is to see Japanese developers back at the sharp end of technical implementation and artistic creativity. The destruction is very impressive here, with the entire battle seeing you both lay wake to the cathedral as rubble, stained glass windows and ambulances all feel the devil's wrath. Aside some minor furniture displacement though, this is the high point. I hope it is used across the game, and even though it is scripted in places, such as the smash through the roof, it is a dynamic system that adds a great deal to the game's visual and visceral impact. Due to the complete change in game style and aim, obviously many changes will have occurred from Res 7 under the hood and again to the Res 2 remake also launching next year that I covered at E3. Now, unlike that demo, the in-game post-processing here does not seem as heavy. We still see some cracking per object motion blur and a temporal AA solution, in addition to chromatic aberration, which can soften and distort the image slightly, much more so on the base model in relation to the X's much higher pixel count. But texture details, materials and geometry all have a sharper look than some other titles due to this. A low quality radial blur is used, which can look weak at times but is never a large distraction. Triangle count is reduced, or at the very least is used to stretch further within the same budget. We have far longer views, detailed floors and walls and other areas that soak up the vertex count. This can leave some shots with angular points, but is a very minor and welcome sacrifice for the performance targets of 60 FPS. Which brings me on to my last point, and the one area I think the team will be concentrating on with good reason. Cutscenes are ramped up in quality, which is obvious: skin shaders, lighting accuracy, post effects and maybe even polygon counts, which has a knock-on effect to the frame rate. They both run unlocked but can hover close enough to that 33 millisecond frame time to really suggest a cap would be a good option, or at least a performance versus quality mode, which either lowers or scales the resolution, if indeed dynamic scaling is not already in use, but I didn't spot any points where it was, when the load becomes greater. As they are not interactive, it's not a huge deal, but the inconsistent nature of them can be noticed at times as you watch. This also carries over to the actual gameplay. We very rarely see any frame time exceed that 33 millisecond high, but these can happen often enough to affect the flow of combat. Unsurprisingly, the hulking battle at the end is the worst offender of this in gameplay. The X still performs much better than the S model here in action. It's slightly reversed in cutscenes though, but across an average the X wins out with a more consistent level of performance. It can hold close to 60 in the smaller areas where the S will often drop frames, and this can happen on both when moving from one section to another. It does not feel bad to play on either machine, and aside the one boss section it feels much smoother on the X, but I would suspect we will see a welcome boost to this come the final release, and it may come by a low resolution or a dynamic one, which is not a bad thing. After all, the devil is always in the details. Anyway, that was a quick one. I hope you enjoyed it, and jump on the Xbox Live Marketplace and grab this demo for yourself now. Give it a try, it's well worth diving into, and it really sparked my love of the Devil May Cry series, and I'll be looking forward to covering this come release, and I'll be contacting Capcom for that early release copy. Hopefully they can deliver like they did on Resident Evil 7. You guys and girls take care, play fast, game hard, and I'll catch you on the next one.